Good afternoon, Ghana. It's 12 o'clock. Time to reach for mobile water. Mobile water, unique in every way.
Hashtag stop Galamsey now.
Let the water flow. I will speak to him directly. President John Dramani Mahama.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. The news is live on Joy 99.7 and Hits 103.9 FM here in Accra. We're live on Love 99.5 in Kumasi, myjoyonline.com and affiliates in all 16 regions of Ghana, including Shine 96.9 in Akache, Bewa Radio Yendi, A1 Radio Bolgatanga, Sky FM Sunyang and Radio Max Takrade. Live on X Spaces, Facebook and YouTube. Coming up, Minority in Parliament questions latest inflation figures announced by the Statistical Service, insisting the rate does not reflect on the real market.
I'm also getting a lot of messages from people who are saying that what they see on the market doesn't exactly correspond with that. I'm sure when the government statistician appears before us, we'll have an opportunity to interrogate the data that they have.
Stay tuned as we bring you reactions from the market.
The prices of pear is so high. The lowest price is 20 cedis. The prices of plantain is not that high, but her concern is the transport. It makes it very expensive.
Also this afternoon, former fetish priest and self-styled evangelist Nana Gwada could be released from prison as early as July 2026 following a substantial reduction of a sentence by the Amasamai High Court.
I think it's a good news. And already spent about 7 months in imprisonment, so I'm sure she'll be out very soon.
Concerns about readiness of public hospitals ahead of the Mahama Cares rollout as an assessment of the Greater Accra Regional Hospital exposes major equipment gaps.
It is so thick that even with an outboard motor, you cannot see through it. We are unable to
In sports,
legal practitioner Samuel Battles describes delayed justice for Kotoko fan Nana Pole as a lack of commitment from authorities.
Today on Climate Evidence, we focus on how seaweed invasion along the western coastline is destroying fishing grounds, damaging nets and boats and emitting foul odors.
It is so thick that even with an outboard motor, you cannot see through it. We are unable to let our nets down when we see fish.
These and more with me, Gemma Appiah. This is Joy News, independent, fearless and credible. This afternoon, the minority in Parliament is questioning the latest inflation figures announced by the Ghana Statistical Service. Government statistician Dr. Al-Hassan Idrisu announced on Tuesday that the inflation rate for January had fallen to 3.8%. The 3.8% drop indicates a slow rise in prices than they were a year ago. Speaking to journalists in Parliament, the minority spokesperson on the economy, Kojo Ponkroma, stated that they are receiving reports suggesting that the inflation figures do not accurately reflect the realities in the market.
I'm hearing that figure. I'm also getting a lot of messages from people who are saying that what they see on the market doesn't exactly correspond with that. I'm sure when the government statistician appears before us, we'll have an opportunity to interrogate the data that they have and match it to what is really happening in the market. Many of your viewers and listeners, they buy from the markets and they will be the best judges to tell us whether what they're experiencing on the market is 3.8% or not. We have told you earlier that what the government is doing to achieve these inflationary targets is not actually tackling the supply side. It's actually sterilizing a lot of money from the system. You recall that around October we told you that the government has sterilized about 60 billion Ghana cedis from the system. In other words, that money is being sucked out of the economy, so people who want to use it to, conduct transactions can't even access it. So it's one thing they're doing it on the demand side and telling you, therefore, that inflation is down to 3.8. But when you go to the market, you see the real rate.
Joy News was at the market to speak to the traders about the impact of the figures on their trade. Here are some of them at the Malata market speaking to Joy News.
No, you 20 cities airco. There's a unkiteska won't mean tope. Uka almost say any season, a bomb see a beba, and so a mother. Don't suppose I was to be about from no beer to me Toby because he has a healthy food.
Akosia is saying that the prices of pear is so high. She was told that by the time the festive seasons were over, the price of pear would have reduced. But here we are in February and the lowest price is 20 cedis.
Madam ginger and the better. Ubeyen quite kitwe be with your ginger 50 cedis.
Auntie Amanda is concerned about the price of ginger. She says that the ginger, the sizes are so small and yet it's so expensive. And to prepare a little meal, you'll have to buy at least 50 cedis ginger because no one sells even 10 cedis. Auntie here is saying that the prices of plantain is not that high, but her concern is the transport. It makes it very expensive, and so she's hoping that at least when that aspect is resolved, the plantain, the cost of it will not keep going up higher.
No me first no here le 10 cedi be an ko lo buy le 15.
Sister Nyakwa say okra comes in seasons like what others have been telling us. So this is not the season for the okra, but the prices are relatively better than a year ago.
So you had traders at the Malata market. So how should we interpret inflation? Should it have a direct impact on our finances? Professor Festus Ebo Texin is an associate professor of economics, Department of Econs at the University of Ghana. He joins me now. Welcome to the Midday News. We've heard from the traders that the figures do not significantly influence the cost of everyday goods and services. How then should we reconcile the monthly announcements with our daily living?
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon to you, your listeners. If inflation itself correlates an increase in price. So when you say inflation is reducing, it means that the rate at which prices were increasing relative to last year has been slower. So when inflation reduces, it doesn't mean that prices would reduce. For the average consumer, what it means is that relative to how you manage last year, this year, the rate at which prices are increasing are relatively better than last year. So you could say that, last year, around this time, the price of these products were increasing faster. This year, they are increasing, but not as fast as last year. Also, you need to take note on the fact that the inflation rate that is calculated on a price index of a basket of goods, both food and non-food items that a typical Ghanaian household consumes in a month. And therefore, in that item, there are thousands of goods, some of which you find their prices reducing, especially those that are imported, and because the cedis become stronger, their prices will reduce. And then their almost prices will increase. But at the end of the day, in the composite index of the goods in the basket, the price index for that basket in this month, relative to the same month last year, has increased not as fast as last year. And so, when you take the story of pear, you take the story of ginger, like you just played out, those prices would have increased much higher than what the inflation rate is talking about because of issues related to maybe production or the demand. But you heard from the plantain seller tell you that as for plantain, the prices have become relatively cheaper or the prices are not increasing as fast as it used to. That is how it works. So Ghanaians shouldn't expect the inflation to transform into their markets, in their pockets immediately. What it does is that because the prices are increasing as fast, there is some stability in prices in the economy. And therefore, the Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank, seeing that inflation has come low, also begin to use these policy rates to reduce the policy rate to the extent that it begins to have an impact on interest rates in the economy. And when interest rates reduce, the private sector are able to get cheaper credits.
Just before you
and
continue,
therefore they can expand.
Just before you continue, Prof, does the minority then have a fair point when they say that what is being reported by the statistical service does not reflect the reality on the ground?
No, but that is not the point. Inflation reported by statistical service, historical inflation, by all means prices would increase. And therefore, when it is reported that inflation has dropped to 3.8%, it doesn't mean that prices are reducing. And therefore, if the inflation is reported and you are able to say that, look, but prices have not reduced, it's fine. You can go and say that. The point is that relative to the previous time or a year ago, the extent to which prices were increasing are very low now. And therefore, you shouldn't go out and say that, go and check if prices have reduced. If prices have reduced, we don't call that disinflation. It is deflation. So prices will not reduce, but the extent to which the prices are increasing will increase at a slower pace. And that is a reflection of what the statistical service is reporting. So as for low inflation, the good thing is that they are not going to find that when you go to the market, you are buying goods at a lower price. What it's saying is that if, for instance, your incomes have increased over the year at 20%, and today the goods that you buy, their price have increased by 3%, your real income is higher, so you can buy more goods. It doesn't mean the price of the goods are reduced. I'll give you another example. Supposing I produce kinky, and because transportation is part of my cost of the inputs of producing the kinky, and I go to the market to buy my maize. But this time, because fuel prices have not increased and they've reduced, transportation fares have been reduced, the cost of my inputs in preparing the kinky would have reduced. It is for me, the kinky seller, to decide that I rather make the ball of kinky a little bit bigger, but at the same price, or reduce the price. But more often than not, they will reduce the price. But for me, as a consumer of the bowl of kinky, I'll find out that the size of the bowl of kinky has increased a little bit, even though I still buy it at 5 cents.
Thank you for your time. Professor Festus Ebo-Texin is the Associate Professor at the Economics Department, University of Ghana. We keep hearing words like inflation, disinflation, and now even deflation. In simple terms, what do they mean? Joy News Research has put together the details for us. Ken is here to give us the details. Ken, tell us what inflation means.
So, Gemma, inflation simply means the rate at which general prices are going up. So, your money buys less than before. And this inflation means prices are still rising, but more slowly. Things are still expensive, but they are no longer jumping sharply. That's what we're seeing now. Prices may still be high, but they are more stable. Let me give you an example. So, you do recall somewhere in 2022, for example, when inflation was at around 50%. Every trip to the market came with higher prices. But today, with inflation around 3.8%, prices are more predictable and may even come down slightly because inflation is a broad measure and considers the average price changes across various goods and services. When there is a disinflation, it tells you the prices of some items in the inflation basket are actually dropping, and this was evident in the latest release by the Ghana Statistical Service. Now, let's talk about deflation because we realized that about 2 regions experienced that, and this is where general prices actually fall. So you go to the market and notice that food or transport is cheaper. That's what we term as deflation. So in all, inflation is prices rising fast, disinflation is prices rising slowly, and deflation is prices falling.
Thank you very much. Let's move to other stories. This afternoon, the minority in Parliament is strongly criticizing Cocoa Board and government over the failure to pay farmers since November of last year. Farmers who have confirmed the situation explained that payments for cocoa delivered several months ago remain outstanding despite repeated assurances from the Ghana Cocoa Board. We'll bring you that later. Now, former fetish priest and self-styled evangelist Nana Aguada could be released from prison as early as July 2026 following a substantial reduction of her sentence by the Amasaman High Court. The High Court has cut Aguada's 15-year prison sentence to 12 calendar months, ruling that the punishment imposed by the trial court was harsh and excessive. While affirming her conviction, the court exercised its discretion to vary the sentence, holding that the original term was disproportionate in the circumstances. In studio with me is James Aveji with some background and details. Aveji, first remind us what landed her the 15-year jail term.
Well, Gemma, so she was originally sentenced to 15 years imprisonment with hard labor after being found guilty of defrauding by false pretense and charlatanic advertisement. That, according to the court, the conviction stemmed from a televised and social media money doubling scheme she promoted after rebranding herself from a fetish priestess to a Christian evangelist. The prosecutors told the court at the time that Aguada claimed she possessed supernatural powers which she used for all of the miracles, quote unquote, that she did at the time.
Well, her appeal has been successful. How did she argue that?
Her lawyers had requested the court to quash the 15-year sentence, immediately granting her freedom. The court was magnanimous to that. The court noted that although the offenses warranted custodial punishment, justice was better served by a reduced sentence reflecting in the 1 year they've given her, which took effect from July 3, 2025. The date of her conviction. As a result, she would have to serve a total of 12 months in custody, and having spent about 7 months in prison, she could be eligible for release later this year, subject to prison regulations. And her lawyer, Richard Asaribafo, has been speaking to the media.
Our prayer was for the conviction to be set aside, but in the wisdom of the courts, he has upheld the conviction and rather reduced the sentencing from 15 years to 1 year. I think it's a good news. And already spent about 7 months in imprisonment, so I'm sure she'll be out very soon. There are several of them that went into jail, but eventually that doesn't change the calling on them. So he's not the first person to be jailed. We have so many prominent figures in Ghana and even outside Ghana who were once at a point in their lives were jailed.
And James, she must be very excited about this development.
Of course, it appears so from his appearance in court. She came to court today in white long dress, and she did not attempt to cover her face like she does. She actually posed freely for the cameras and looked very, very excited, and with some laughter on her face as she walked out of court.
Thank you very much, James Aveji there. Now, with the Ghana Medical Trust Fund expected to become operational in April, attention is shifting to the preparedness of health facilities selected to support the program. During a routine assessment visit to the Greater Accra Regional Hospital, the administrator of the fund, Obo Obiada Kwopoku, raised concerns about the absence of key diagnostic equipment. Gaps, she says, could undermine patients' care. More in the following report by Rodelyn Abensa.
The Greater Accra Regional Hospital serves thousands of patients daily from the capital and neighboring communities. But an inspection tour of the facility revealed shortages in critical diagnostic equipment, forcing many patients to seek services from private facilities at additional cost.
I'm surprised that you have almost about 1,000 people walking into this facility that does not have a CT scan, an MRI, fluoroscopy, a mammogram machine, X-ray, and live in a capital city and our capital regional hospital cannot boast of any equipment that can be used. So everybody who walks in here, if you are not able to get your test done, has to be referred to a private facility outside this facility, go and get your test done and bring it back for onward diagnostics or prescriptions or whatever it is.
The visit forms part of a nationwide assessment of hospitals earmarked to benefit from the Mahama Cares. Ms. Darko Boku appealed to corporate Ghana and development partners to support government efforts to strengthen public health facilities.
I'm calling on corporate Ghana this afternoon. It's very important that we reach out as part of.
Findings from the ongoing assessments are expected to guide resource allocation and ensure facilities like the Greater Accra Regional Hospital are better equipped to meet patient needs. Rhoda Lena Benson's report, read to you.
Take a break now. We're back with more stories. Please stay. Welcome back to the Midday News. It's now time for sports.
Yes, Gemma, legal practitioner Samuel Battles has described the delayed justice for Nana Pole as a lack of commitment from authorities. Monday marked 1 year since the Asante Kotoko supporter was stabbed to death in Nswatre during a Premier League clash between Kotoko and Nswatreman. The case continues to linger in court with the killer still at large.
Now, my understanding really is that the case is yet to properly take off. Beyond the procedural delays, there is very clearly a lack of commitment to proceed with this case, because whilst I do not expect that this should have been completed within a year, it is certainly not where people would have expected it to be. And it clearly shows that there's a difference between the immediate outpouring of grief and of outrage and the call for action that came from the highest level, right from the sports minister to the GFA, to football fans and various other stakeholders in football within the country. There's a difference between that and commitment and action and bringing the full weight of whichever authority is involved to ensure that justice is expedited.
That's Sami Battles, a lawyer and a football pundit. Back to you, Gemma.
Thank you very much, Mubarak. Now, the Kwale Klote Municipal Assembly has suspended with immediate effect all burials at the Osu Cemetery for a period of 2 months. Municipal Chief Executive of the Assembly, Alfred Alutegezi, announced this at a news conference a while ago. Michelle Latte is there for us. Michelle, what's the reason?
A few weeks or a few days ago, there were reports of some Muslims doing some illegal exhumations of bodies at the cemetery. So this directive is to enable them to conduct some audits and comprehensive assessment of the situation and be able to identify these criminals and put them before the law.
Thank you very much, Michelle Latte. Now, for decades, the sea has sustained Ghana's coastal communities, but that lifeline is increasingly under threat. Large volumes of sagasum, a floating seaweed, are washing ashore along the western coastline, disrupting fishing and undermining livelihoods. While sagasum is harmless in small amounts and even supports marine life, excessive buildups rot on shore, emit foul odors, block fishing grounds, damage nets and boats, and render beaches unusable. Amid speculation about oil exploration, experts say the surge is driven largely by global factors. In this edition of Climate Evidence, Joy News' Ina Thalia Kwanzaa explores the science behind the invasion, its impact on coastal communities, and the urgent questions it raises for Ghana's coastline.
For more than a decade, coastal communities in Ghana's western region have faced recurring seaweed invasion that threatens livelihood and health. Brown seaweeds, known as sargassum, now replaces fishers in fishing nets, especially between June and October. Fisherman Isaac Egan says life has become unbearable.
This weed is not helping us at all. It is so thick that even with an outboard motor, you cannot see through it. We are unable to let our nets down when we see fish. We are appealing to the authorities concerned to, as a matter of urgency, do something about the weeds, as it is seriously corrupting our businesses.
Senior lecturer in geography at the University of Education, Winneba, Dr. Victor Owusu explains that rising ocean temperatures and strong currents links to the climate change are driving the invasion.
Thrives under heat. So as we are observing global rise in temperatures, the conditions at the microclimatic conditions on the ocean is quite fertile because of the heat and also other activities from land.
Seaweeds arrives during the peak fishing season, worsening economic losses. As it decomposes, it releases a pungent smell that causes itching and respiratory discomfort and has discouraged tourism. Residents say they try to clean the shore, but the weeds keep returning.
We
used to sweep here every week, but looking at it now, there is nothing we can do as a community.
In Athalia Kwanzaa, Joy News, Western Region.
This story is brought to you by Joy News in partnership with CDK in Ghana, University of Ghana Center for Climate Change and Sustainability Studies, with funding from Claire R4I Opportunities Fund.
Imagine buying your favorite herrings and fishes from the market only to find they may be contaminated with fecal matter. That's exactly what our latest Joy Clean Ghana campaign has uncovered in Jamestown, where fishmongers are drying sea fish directly on busy road medians. The fish are exposed to exhaust fumes, dust, and human and animal waste, raising serious health concerns. Floris Kunchi is Director of Public Health at the Accra Metropolitan Assembly. She's warning that consuming such fish could pose severe health risks, including bacterial infections.
Yourself, you saw it. The fish was dried. Somebody went, I don't know whether the person has decided to shit inside or the person went to step on the shit and came to walk on the fish throughout. You saw it. You asked me why we are not collecting it. How can we collect something that has already been contaminated with human excreta? Because of the vehicular emissions and the ties, there's also a high risk of lead and cadmium contamination on these fishes. And when you eat it, you can develop upper respiratory diseases. It is like some of the chemicals are carcinogenics. And not just that one alone. With the microorganisms, it can lead to diarrhea, it can lead to cholera, it can lead to typhoid fever. Some people go to the market, they don't even wash it, they just remove the dish and they want to taste it to see how palatable it is before they will buy. You stood there and they are telling you they are not selling it to human beings. Whom are they selling it to?
The Vice President, Jenano Pokwajiman, has today been visiting some ministries. My colleague Fatao Bayaga is with her and joins me now with details. Fatao, where has she been so far?
Gemma, the Vice President has been to 3 ministries this morning, touring the ministry as part of a working visit. She went to the Ministry of Justice, went to the Ministry of Labour, as well as the Ministry of Works and Housing. And basically what she's saying is that she's there to understand the challenges that they are going through and for government to take steps in terms of addressing all of that. The various ministers also spoke about the issues they are confronted with, but the Vice President said the President is committed and all of those challenges would be addressed.
Thank you very much, Fatao Bayaga. It's now time to know what's trending. Adobia is here. Adobia.
Yes, Gemma, you know definitely Nana Grada will be in the trends following what you just said.
Absolutely.
Today, and it's quite interesting. Most Ghanaians are unhappy about what we are hearing. So, Prince Osei, for instance, says that it's okay for the sentence to be reduced, but to 1 year, that's too small. He believes the woman has done too much. to be in custody for just a year. So from the comments I have here, most of them are just so unexcited, and some of them are mad at the judiciary. I'm not sure they really know what went into it, but they're just mad. And there are certain comments I can't read, because of language and all, but basically all the people I'm seeing here so far are just unhappy about this new development to the Agrada case. So that's what's trending.
And that's how we end the Midday News.